Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about Enkidu, one of the most powerful servants in Fate/Grand Order. Enkidu is a clay creature created by the gods to be a rival to Gilgamesh, the King of Uruk. He is incredibly strong and durable, and he has a variety of powerful abilities. History. Enkidu is a major character in the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest and most important works of literature in the world. The epic tells the story of Gilgamesh, a powerful king who is seeking immortality. Enkidu is created by the gods to test Gilgamesh and to teach him humility. The Epic of Gilgamesh was first written down in Mesopotamia around 2100 BC, but it is believed to be based on oral traditions that are much older. The epic is a complex and fascinating work of literature that tells a story of love, loss, friendship, and adventure. Enkidu is one of the most interesting characters in the epic. He is a clay creature who is brought to life by the gods. He is strong and powerful, but he is also kind and compassionate. He is a loyal friend and a fierce warrior. Enkidu plays a key role in the epic. He helps Gilgamesh to defeat the monster Humbaba, and he travels with Gilgamesh on his quest to find the Garden of Eden. Enkidu also helps Gilgamesh to learn about humility and compassion. Here's a more humorous take on Enkidu's history. Enkidu was a clay creature who was brought to life by the gods. He was created to be a rival to Gilgamesh, the King of Uruk. The gods thought that Gilgamesh was getting too powerful and needed a challenge. Enkidu was raised by animals in the wilderness. He was strong and powerful, but he was also wild and uncivilized. When Gilgamesh first met Enkidu, he was amazed by his strength and power. But he was also disgusted by Enkidu's wild appearance. Gilgamesh decided that he had to tame Enkidu. He sent a prostitute to seduce Enkidu. The prostitute was successful, and Enkidu was soon civilized. He learned how to speak, how to wear clothes, and how to behave like a human being. Enkidu and Gilgamesh became friends. They went on many adventures together, including defeating the monster Humbaba and searching for the Garden of Eden. Enkidu helped Gilgamesh to learn about humility and compassion. However, Enkidu's time on Earth was short-lived. The gods were jealous of Enkidu's friendship with Gilgamesh. They decided to kill Enkidu. Enkidu died a tragic death. He was struck down by a plague sent by the gods. Gilgamesh was heartbroken by Enkidu's death. He mourned his friend for many years. Enkidu's story is a tragic one, but it is also a story of friendship, love, and loss. It is a story that has been told for thousands of years, and it continues to resonate with people today. Bibliography. There are many different versions of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but the most famous version is the one that was translated by Andrew George in 1999. George's translation is considered to be the most accurate and scholarly translation of the epic. If you are interested in learning more about Enkidu and the Epic of Gilgamesh, I recommend reading George's translation. You can also find many other resources about the epic online and in libraries. Here are some of the most famous versions of the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Standard Babylonian Version, which is the most complete version of the epic. The Old Babylonian Version, which is the oldest version of the epic. The Sumerian Version, which is the oldest known version of the epic. Here are some of the most famous resources about the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh by Andrew George, 1999. The Epic of Gilgamesh by Stephen Mitchell, 2004. The Epic of Gilgamesh by Robert Silverberg, 1960. Powers and abilities. Enkidu, the strongest clay man in the world. Enkidu is a clay man, but he's not your average clay man. He's strong, he's fast, and he's tough as nails. He's also got a few tricks up his sleeve that will make you think twice about messing with him. Here are just a few of Enkidu's powers and abilities. Superhuman strength. Enkidu is incredibly strong. He can lift cars, punch through walls, and even stop a charging bull in its tracks. Superhuman speed. Enkidu is also incredibly fast. He can run faster than a speeding car and jump higher than a house. Superhuman durability. Enkidu is incredibly tough. He can take a beating and keep on going. He's even survived being hit by lightning. Regeneration. Enkidu can regenerate from any injury. He can even grow back limbs. Control over nature. Enkidu can control the forces of nature. He can make the wind blow, the rain fall, and the earth shake. Speech with animals. Enkidu can speak with animals. He can even understand their thoughts and feelings. With all of these powers and abilities, Enkidu is one of the most powerful beings in the world. He's a force to be reckoned with, and he's not someone to be taken lightly. But Enkidu isn't just a powerful warrior. He's also a kind and compassionate friend. He's always willing to help those in need, and he's always there for his friends. Enkidu is a complex and fascinating character. He's strong, powerful, and kind. He's a true hero, and he's an inspiration to us all. Here are some more humorous ways to describe Enkidu's powers and abilities. He's so strong, he can bench press a train. He's so fast, he can run around the world in a day. He's so tough, he can take a punch from a god and keep on fighting. He's so durable, he can survive being hit by lightning and keep on living. He's so regenerative, he can grow back limbs like a lizard. He's so powerful, he can control the forces of nature. He can talk to animals, so he's always got a furry friend by his side. Enkidu is a force to be reckoned with, but he's also a kind and compassionate friend. He's a true hero, and he's an inspiration to us all. Conclusion. Enkidu is a complex and fascinating character. He's strong, powerful, and kind. He's a true hero, and he's an inspiration to us all. Enkidu is a reminder that even the strongest of us can learn from others and grow as people. He's also a reminder that we should never give up on our dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem. Enkidu is a role model for us all. He shows us that it's possible to be strong, powerful, and kind all at the same time. He also shows us that we should never give up on our dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem. If you're looking for a character to inspire you, look no further than Enkidu. He's a true hero, and he's an inspiration to us all. So there you have it, the story of Enkidu, the strongest clay man in the world. He was a force to be reckoned with, but he was also a kind and compassionate friend. He's a true hero, and he's an inspiration to us all. If you're ever feeling down, just remember Enkidu's story. He shows us that it's possible to be strong, powerful, and kind all at the same time. He also shows us that we should never give up on our dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem. So go out there and be like Enkidu. Be strong, be powerful, and be kind. And never give up on your dreams.
If you liked the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll stay here until next time.